first of all, I want to welcome my very good friend. He's a special guest. He was one of the creators of Vice Media, right? Right?
Correct.
He's an incredible journalist, writer, filmmaker, and just a great guy. My good buddy, Andy Capper. Thanks for coming, Andy. How about a donut?
I've already had some.
Well, I'm
I'm so nervous.
What's that?
I'm not good at these things.
I know, because you're usually the one interviewing.
Yeah.
But we're just talking.
I know all the tricks. You're trying to make me feel relaxed, but it's
No,
not
I'm
working.
not. I'm not. Oh, there's the coffee. You want a coffee?
Yeah. It'll make me more on edge.
Sure. But what have you been doing? What have you been up to lately?
I wrote a film that you're involved with
That's right.
the girl called Maddie Knight about John Philman should be on the show.
Oh, yeah, we'll get John. You know what I want to ask you about?
It's based in like the plant. It's like a horror movie based in sort of plant medicine, and I'm doing another rap thing, chasing this kid around at the moment. Doesn't want to be interviewed for his own thing.
Speaking of, though, but
like, you're paying for the like.
Yeah.
Then it's just bits and bobs. Another thing, you've always got to have like 6, 7 things on the go in case none of them work.
Right.
And sometimes that's the case.
But you know what I watched last night again, which I
What?
thought was fantastic, and I'd like to ask you about it, was You People.
People like you.
I mean, people like you, sorry.
Yeah.
People like you. Oh, my donuts.
Yeah.
Black shirt. Can you see that? Anyway, but people like you, can
Yeah.
you talk about that? Because can anybody see people like you?
Not right now. I'm looking. It was temporarily available on this streaming service in London, and
Can you explain what that is, though?
it was the movie or the
Yeah.
streaming service.
The movie. What is it about?
The movie was about. It was paid for by some people who own like rehab centers, and it was sort of about the failure of the rehab system in America, coupled with it was quite a long time ago now. It was 5 or 6 years ago. Coupled with it was like the fentanyl numbers were going through the roof, and it just follows a kid in and out of relapsing heroin and fentanyl. And then it follows a family who lost their son to heroin, and the two different stories overlap. And it's another one about it's a lot of hopelessness, and there's some solutions. Patrick Kennedy's in it,
Yeah.
but the solutions seem simple when he talks about them, but I don't know. There's a lot of it talking about early intervention for kids who have more predilection towards addiction, catching it early on, because by the time that I think one of the things that Patrick Kennedy says, it's like giving chemo to a stage 4 cancer patient when you've got a kid who's been in and out of rehab when they're 26. Well, the first time they go to rehab, they're 26, they've been using for like however many years. It's like there's been so much damage done on the neural pathways and the habits, and your dopamine buttons are all over the place, that it's just so much harder to put back. So he's talking about, earlier intervention and spotting it earlier, but I don't know.
Let me ask you a question, because we also, one of my favorites that you did with Vice, I believe, right, was about general butt naked.
Different sort of, I mean, there was like...
Totally different.
Yeah. There's always,
But
that was one of the first things I ever shot. There was always like a lot of heroin in all the films for one reason and another. And
because that one you can see, right? We can see that one.
yeah, Vimeo.com/Happy Now Film. They're all on there.
Yeah.
Full length for free.
What was the name of that one?
The Vice Guide to Liberia.
Yes, The Vice Guide to Liberia.
Yeah, it was kind of. I'd always been fascinated with those two civil wars, Sierra Leone and Liberia, and Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor was the leader of the rebels in the Liberia, and his case was coming up in the Hague for war crimes. Naomi Campbell was involved. I actually went to the Hague to see it the day Naomi Campbell was there, because she was they'd been at a party at Nelson Mandela's house one night, and the rumor was that he'd given her like a unfurnished blood diamond in order that they could
Really?
get together that night. And it was just, I mean, it was, as war crime trials go, it was pretty glamorous with Naomi Campbell walking in and,
Yeah.
I don't know who this guy is, I don't recognize him, he just gave me a rock, nothing happened. And so we went to Liberia because that sort of stuff was going on, and it was actually one of the first things I'd ever shot myself with a camera. I had like half a day of like how to work the camera with the zebras and everything, and the next day I flew there on my own, and then sort of the next day I was in that zinc shack with a little kid, like smoking off the foil.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the crew turned up a couple of days later.
So you went there alone?
I just had like the exposure, like that's why it's kind of so grainy because it was so dark in there. I went there with the fixer that was there, and then
what's the fixer? Explain what the fixer is.
It was a guy. Fixers are people, field producers, fixers. They're the people who are on the ground who can get you into the spots that, like the scary spots that if you didn't have the fixer, they would just strip you of all your belongings. So whenever you do anything in those sort of situations, like the hood, any place, you always have a guy who's like, you've all got
this guy was a white guy, right?
Yeah, Miles, yeah, Canadian guy.
And what was he doing there? Like, how does a guy like that get?
I don't know what Miles was doing. He was sort of,
in that situation.
He was just doing some NGO work. There's a lot of NGO work to be done over there. And the UN are there, and the UN, I haven't got the best reputation when you go to places like that. I'm not saying they're all bad, but there's all sorts of things you hear.
And then when you got to, were you hired by Vice, or how did you get in with Vice like that? How did that work?
I helped start the British side of it in like 2001 or whatever.
And then with this story, this was your first story?
No, this was like 10 years later.
I was
at Vice for like 15 years.
But this is your first time going and running operating the camera, being in the
spot. I'd been with other camera people before, and other directors, and been on the ground producing stuff, but I'd never like flown to Africa on my own with a camera.
Yeah, because I see you in that one shot.
Oh yeah, we got chased down. That was bad.
What was that about?
We edited that so that it was at the beginning, but it was actually the last day of the trip when you're sort of more relaxed and you're not really. So whenever we would do the dangerous shoots, I would always sort of tell the kids, the last day is when everyone's guard is down and like the sketchiest stuff happens.
Yeah.
And we just like because we'd be drinking a lot on those shoots, especially in those days, and that malaria medicine you're on, it gives you the like Freddy Krueger nightmares like every night. So you're sort of in this state of tipsy or like wasted on the malaria medicine and all these places. And I think that last night we were sort of happy that we'd had a really productive shoot and got some great footage. And then we just ended up on this rooftop with just like 60 guys looking at us.
Yeah. And who was the guy, the main guy on the rooftop?
The host?
Yes.
Oh, Shane.
Oh, that was Shane.
Yeah. That was that old version, Shane.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you worked with him how often?
He was ever present in the setup.
So
as the more money came in, he became more distant, and the more money came in, the sort of people change with money.
Yeah.
Their habits don't change; they just become more. The habits become sort of supercharged.
Yeah.
And potentially the character defects become super villainy maybe to some people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think at that place it was a cult like sort of church.
You're talking about Vice itself.
Yeah, church of sort of cult dedicated to exacerbating personality disorders. When there was a lot of good work going on, and there was
right?
There was good stuff about it, but there was also.
But you personally, I want to know about you personally, because this is what you and I have talked this. I'm fascinated by. So when you have a story, like you said, you were always very interested in that Civil War, right?
I was always just interested in like.
Do you go and say, hey, You have to go to Shane. He goes, Shane, I want to do this story.
That's pretty much how that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and you go, I want to do it, and he says,
That one was, you go through one person that went to that person. It seemed such a good hook. It was in the early days before there was committees and corporate money and everything. And
so did they then just greenlight the story and they go,
it was done a week later, 2 weeks later, I was there.
And did they supply you? They go, we're going to give you a crew and.
No, they just go, here's a camera, go on your own. And then they'll follow you. Like, if it's good, they'll come 2 days later.
So you go first.
Yeah.
Check out the scene.
Yeah.
And then you go, and then you have to send them anything?
It's totally fucked. Come.
And that's how it works, right? Because
that's how it used to work, yeah.
Because let me tell you something. When I watched that
was when all that, I think, the most popular stuff was made. And that, as it grew with...
Because there's something really exciting about it, which I've never seen. What caught my eye about Vice in the early days, and it's particularly what you're talking about, that one you shot, right? Mm. There was such a run and gun style.
Yeah.
It made it scary and so real, like it's in your face, like you're there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like highly produced at all, right?
It was, the company the company made some good highly produced stuff, but on the whole it was just weighed down by certain people wanted the company to become just small. They wanted the money, so they were willing to do anything to make it more mainstream. And
I guess that's what I mean. It wasn't mainstream. You know what I'm saying? It was like it was like a guy with a camera in the most dangerous fucking place in the world, it seems.
Definitely not, but like a dangerous seeming place. It wasn't
safe.
Dude,
that was dangerous.
But
the general butt naked. I mean, can you talk about him a little bit?
He wasn't undangerous, but
what did he do? Say what he did.
He claimed, as the years go by, you're like, what was true? I mean, he claimed during the Civil War to be this like nudist. He was naked, a cannibal. He used to sacrifice babies and stuff.
And is there truth to that?
I said to him because he stayed at the hotel with us.
Yeah.
And we would just like hang out, have dinner with him every night. And then one night we were getting on great. And it sounds terrible to say that nobody's 100% bad maybe. And after dinner one night, I was just like, Joshua, how could you do that though? How could you like?
What did he say?
He would eat the baby's heart and
stuff. He would eat a baby's heart
in front of everybody and like scream to the sky all naked. And he said, so I said to him, how could you do that?
Yeah.
He goes, oh, it's easy. You just find a woman who's had a baby. You give her some money. Then you get the baby and you break it on a rock. And then you take that heart out and eat it. I'm like, I wasn't looking for like a recipe, but I guess you gave me one.
It's crazy. I mean, that's.
I was like, okay,
gnarly.
good.
Okay,
I'll see you at 9:30 tomorrow.
But what
we're gonna go to the church tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you there.
But here's what's fascinating to me. Okay, and I've asked you this a million times because I can't understand it. I'd have to be high as fucking balls to go to put myself in a situation like that. I couldn't do it.
But it'd be way more dangerous to do that.
What do you mean?
To be high.
Well, I'm not saying I'm speaking. I'm not saying literally. I couldn't just go into a situation like that. Like it's the complete and total unknown. You're flying in with a camera.
Well,
into a civil war.
No, but
right?
You have some idea of what you're walking. We planned all the days and we knew where we were going. You don't.
And you have the fixer, right?
Yeah, and we're going to do this at this point, and this is going to happen then, and you sort of have a few drinks at lunchtime or at night, but like during anything like that, when it's like potentially super dangerous.
Like what would be super dangerous? Give me an example of super dangerous that you experienced.
The
worst thing.
Liberia seemed just mellow compared to when I went to Libya. That was really terrible.
What was that one?
It was just after. It was like about a year, maybe a couple of years after Gaddafi had gone, and the country had it had an interim government and no real police force, and it was all dividing up in between all these different sort of militias.
Yeah.
And it was just a totally disastrous week. And the story we were there to follow this story about these sub-Saharan Africans that Gaddafi wanted to help, that he used as cannon fodder to fight against people like the Misratans. So it was the Twergans, Misratans. The Misratans were one of the biggest militias. They were sort of a lot of people said they helped bring down Gaddafi because I think he died somewhere around there. And the story, Human Rights Watch told us that the Misratans were taking the Tuaregans and putting them in zoos, putting them in like animal zoos and like slaughtering them in the desert. So it was going to be a march that the Human Rights Watch guy told me it was going to be a march of the Tuaregans to try and claim back their thing. The day we got in, the government announced this is not going ahead. It's too dangerous. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, so we go, and we had this fixer called Ahmed, who was a very nervous, chain-smoking Tunisian who wanted to go back to just wanted to go back to Tunisia to get the fuck out of there because it was not very mellow in Libya at that point. As we drove to Misrata, which is in the middle of nowhere in the desert, he's chain-smoking the whole time. Nobody's in a good mood. Because when you're there and you're spending lots of money to be there and the story's not happening, and this is in Libya. It's not Liberia. There's just stuff to film everywhere, and we're like walking kidnapped targets.
And wait a minute, yeah, exactly. And then what's the story?
The story was
that you want to develop.
The story was, I'll get to that now. So we get to Misrata, and we come to the hotel. It's in the middle of nowhere. I walk into the lobby of the hotel, and it's just like the militia. All military uniforms, Arabic clothes, AKs, everything. I've got this big thing of cash because we could only pay for cash. And everyone's just staring at me, just like, oh, hi. I'm like, then the fixer, Ahmed, starts like having this nervous breakdown in the alleyway. In the alleyway, there's just someone constantly firing a pistol. Like testing out the pistol, so you just have the constant noise of gunfire. And I was like, what's up with... We had this English fixer, Phil, who knew Ahmed. And what's wrong with Ahmed now? Because he's always kind of emotionally volatile. It was an emotionally volatile situation. Right. But this guy was meant to be like...
calm.
The grounding force.
Yeah.
Ahmed doesn't want to stay in this hotel. He's going to stay somewhere else. Why is that? Well, last time he was here, he was kidnapped by some of the militia guys and held in one of the rooms, sort of tortured. Think he might have been raped by them. I'm like, why are we in the same hotel? He goes, it's the only hotel. I'm like, okay, so what story was he doing that they didn't like? He goes, kind of the story we're doing. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why have we orchestrated this ourselves? Right. Like, what are we doing? And so we're just like, we check into the hotel that night, midnight. It's the English fixer again. And I'm like, hey, Phil. What's up? He goes, more bad news, I'm afraid. I'm like, great. Because I still had some Xanax at that point. I still had some Xanax left. I had like a Xanax addiction at that point in my life.
Okay.
And
Mitch maybe was good at that point.
I wasn't that calm feeling, but it was holding me together sort of thing. The secret police know that we're here. They think we're spies, and they want us to go to their office at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. We've got to bring all the passports and visas with us. So I'm like, okay, cool. Better get some sleep then. And I'm like, what are we going to do?
I mean, there's no way you could fucking sleep, right?
I know I slept.
You did?
Xanax.
Oh, okay.
How are we going to get out of this one? This is not good because we're doing the thing that they don't want us to do. Why they kidnapped Ahmed. We're here again. We've come back. And they're like, we go to the guy's office. I have all the visas. He reminded me of Peter Cushing in Star Wars. Grand Moff Tarkin. He was just that vibe.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll take those. Lock them in the drawer, all the visas and the passports. We have an interpreter. So what brings you here? And I'd brought a camera with us. This was my plan. So I do my best like Hugh Grant impression.
Do it. Can you do it?
I'll try. I'm just like, well, it's funny you should ask why we're here because it's kind of to meet people like you. Because we know the work that you and your men did to bring down the dictator Gaddafi, and it's actually an amazing coincidence that you've brought us here because we love if you could let us do an interview with you so we could tell your story, the man who brought down Gaddafi, because it would just actually be an honor if we could do that. And he was like, you could see him like his demeanor changed.
Yeah.
You know, the interviewing tricks
Yes.
that you're trying to do on me. Let's have a contest. And then, so we just did this bullshit interview with him, knowing that, and we filmed it. By the end of it, we're all like high-fiving and posing for group photos. We got all the visas back. And from there on, the trip sort of went downhill. It got even worse. We had a fight. Ahmed tried to rob me in the parking lot of the airport, take all the money.
You and the fixer Ahmed had a fight?
Yeah, they left me with him trying to book a new plane ticket to go to fucking Benghazi for some reason, where the Hillary Clinton's emails embassy. And I lost the Xanax. I was like, so I don't know if you've ever withdrawn from Xanax. It's not, even just going on holiday is going to be terrifying. Right. So I had that. Then I had to run through the parking lot of the airport with Ahmed chasing after me, telling everybody in the parking lot, hundreds of cars, all armed, young military-age men, that the white guy had just robbed him. So I'm running on the phone going to the guys, where are you? Can you come?
Screaming the white guy.
Yeah, he's there. And everyone's like looking at their cars. And I just run to the nearest security guard who's got an AK. I just walked up to him. And I'm at Ahmed just like pacing furiously, smoking, just pointing and yelling at me. I'm just like this. Then the crew turned up. We had like a fist fight with Ahmed outside the airport. We got on a plane to Benghazi, and as you're going through, and there was no signage, or all the monitors were down in the airport.
Yeah.
Just millions of people fighting over there. We didn't know if we'd see our bags ever again. We got on the plane to Benghazi somehow. And you look, the X-ray machine is just like pistol through the X-ray machine. We get on the plane, and it's like, okay, now we're going to Benghazi, great. And we didn't really get anything in Benghazi, apart from almost kidnapped again. But we came back with barely any footage because nobody would let us film anything.
Let me go back.
There was just the noise of constant gunfire.
Yeah.
Constant. Pop, pop, pop.
Let me go back to what you said.
It was so it really put Liberia in perspective. That's just a very poor country that looks like Apocalypse Now. Libya is like, everyone's got a gun, everyone's got money. These are the guys. It was so much more serious. I was so out of my depth and sort of embarrassed by how out of my depth I was. That.
What do you mean you're embarrassed? How do you mean?
I went with that. Well, I've done Liberia twice. I've been to Siberia, I've been to the hood all over the place, Sao Paulo, done all this gnarly stuff. Libya, show me what you've got, kind of thing. And it was just like, all right.
Yeah, you had some.
All right, you bitch.
Yeah, arrogance.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, so I'm going to go back. You said something about you were the perfect targets.
Yeah.
White guys to get kidnapped.
Yeah.
Right. Well, did you know that going in?
Yeah, but
that's part of it.
I always had this sort of, I don't know whether it was like a death wish mixed with sort of bravado and a desperation to sort of come back with the craziest footage so that you'd get rewarded.
Yes.
Like measured in death wish, bravado, crazy behavior was rewarded. And so you were always trying to up the ante.
See, but that's like the element that's what I was talking about. There's an element of that, I think, in what we started off with our conversation, you know, in the very beginning. We were talking about the young men and you know what I'm saying? There's this bravado, there's this ego that can somehow, you know, overtake what's fucking reality. The reality of it. You're delusional. Your ego can take over you. You become delusional.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because when you tell me about these stories and stuff, I just think that's fucking crazy. And it's not worth it to me. And what I've seen, I'd say most of the things that films that you've done and this and that, what always blows me away is you're putting yourself in really dangerous, you know, like it or not, they are dangerous and dark situations.
I that was my thing.
Yeah. What is that?
Even my personal life, that was my thing.
Yeah. Where does
Which
that come
wasn't-
from? You think?
I don't know. I mean, unpredictable. What was it? I don't know.
Because it takes a certain type of person.
It was like an
To fucking be able to do that.
adrenaline chasing comfort zone of stress and pushing boundaries that don't need to be pushed
Yeah.
in order to sort of get that sort of sick dopamine
Yeah.
feeling. That sort of, and I think it's a dopamine chase.
Yeah.
The way you've sort of reprogrammed yourself is to find it in all sorts of dark places that eventually I thought I'd made up this quote, but it was actually from the poster of True Detective. Everyone's like, that quote's great. It was just something like, when you reach out to touch the darkness, it always touches you back. And I said that at a couple of these things. People are like, that's fucking genius. I'm like,
I think I remember that.
Then I was like, oh yeah, it was from the poster of True Detective.
Yeah.
But that idea, but it's very true. My writing life, even before the films, was just a lot of, I've got to meet the worst guy. I've got to go to the worst place, or like the dark, to understand it. That was a large motivation to understand it, but also I enjoyed it a little too much.
Yeah.
But it rubs off on you, and you don't know that it's rubbing off on you, and you've got like dirty fingers, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
And if you just keep going. Yeah, it's
because I know in a situation like that, there's always somebody that's your go-to person. I don't mean like the fixer, but somebody that you can trust. Was there anybody in those situations where you could pick up the phone and go, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what I feel freaked out," or do you know what I'm saying?
No.
That you could be honest with.
No.
Nobody. That's really you're so alone.
Yeah, you'd be with if you're friendly with the crew, then yeah, but
yeah.
It was just like this wave of bravado it was quite childish, really. Like a fuck everyone sort of bravado. I wasn't sort of that person, but the certain people within the company sort of encouraged that, like fuck everyone. And it was semi-run a bit like a cult, and it was.
You said that a couple times. What do you mean by that? How do you mean?
It's a cult of personality and narcissism and sort of the tricks of the cult. The trick of really the malignant narcissist of they've always got to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
Some they do that. Some they pull the rug from under your feet without you knowing, or
and
they create a drama or a problem. So
yeah.
if things are going, all of a sudden your attention's back to them in a very dramatic way.
What about like pitting, like you would come
back?
Oh yeah,
constantly pitting people against each other.
Andy got the fucking best footage. He got the best story, whatever.
Yeah, but 2 weeks later.
Then it's somebody, can you top Andy's?
Fuck him. Yeah.
Right?
He's piece of shit was one of the most used phrases to
really?
Describe people. Yeah.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, everyone was piece of shit.
What if I could...
That was like one of them. And then, all sorts happened there.
What about PTSD?
I mean, there's different scales of it.
But
I think
there had to be some with those situations.
You could ask the poor woman who lived with me at the time of the Liberia sort of stuff. She would probably say,
really,
that stuff changes you a little bit.
Yeah, it would have to, because you hear about that.
Because I think your adrenaline level's so high, and you see like very upsetting things there.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly exposing yourself to things that are very upsetting, and so yeah, you come back sort of changed. You sort of harden yourself a little bit in order to bury those things that were so upsetting, and at the same time, it makes you sort of a little I was a psychological, emotional sort of mess, because from this to this, and what's next? What's the next?
Right. Which is like you said, it's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
You're
we
looking for
almost
the
we
next
almost
high.
went to Somalia. We were so close. I would still be in Somalia if we got on this plane.
Why?
Because we were going out to make. It was another guy with a great name, Captain Big Mouth. He was. We were going to call it Big Mouth Strikes Again. He was one of the main pirates, Abdul Qadir, I think he was called. He's one of the main pirates in Somalia, and he was trying to reform himself. So we had like a pirate rehabilitation center in the middle of nowhere. And yes, come out to see us, show us how we're rehabilitating all the pirates in the middle of nowhere. And we had one fixer who was just like this gung-ho SAS guy. It's like, we'll go out there, we'll take the Jeep, we'll go from this place, go to that place. It's going to be fun, and we'll get all this footage. Kushti. It was like, I don't know if you say Kushti, but then we got another really serious sort of security firm involved. And we'd bought the tickets, we're all packed, about getting the plane to Saudi to then go to Somalia.
What year is this?
2014.
Okay.
And the guy was just like, I don't know what to tell you this, but you're about to fly into a trap. We've
Wow.
got intelligence that this guy is planning on using you to get out of another case. Like someone's onto him right now and they're tracking him. And if he had you, and we're like, no, it's good. We were still this mindset, like, we'll be fine. I think I think we'll be fine, I'm saying. And then, well, this SAS security guard's going, I don't know what to tell you. It's of our opinion that this is very dangerous.
It's a trap.
And we just kept pushing it, but no, we couldn't. And it turned out that MI5 arrested him like 6 months later by pretending to be us. They arrested the main. He just got out of prison apparently, so he's probably. But that was like that was another stupid, driven by the desire to do the most.
And so when did you finally go? I'm done. Did you end with the company, or did you leave the company before?
No, like
before it ended.
The company ended. Me and the company ended in like 2016, I think.
And then you just went into film.
I just kept doing the same sort of stuff, but on a smaller scale.
But now you're interested in film.
I've always been what, scripted?
Yeah, scripted.
I was just sick of
That's what you're going to be doing now, right?
No, both, I think. I just got off doing a really sort of frustrating, sort of boring documentary. Again, I'm just sick of doing this. I'm going to write something. And writing was really fun, and I got to work with some great people. And now it's just I like they're not problems anymore. They're sort of like ways to find out more stuff. I think I'm trying to have a different outlook on stuff, and certainly from 10 years ago.
Well, I tell you what,
everything was so anger driven and adrenaline driven.
Okay.
It caused a lot of irresponsible.
Because you're
bull in a china shop nonsense.
But that's not how I know you. Because I know you. How long have I known you? How long are you sober?
7 years.
7 years.
7.5 years.
7.5 years. And I've said this a million times. I know you as somebody who's constantly, tirelessly of service to others. And I see it and you can see it in your films, right? You're shining light on the darkest situations. I went through, watched a bunch of them again last night over and over, right? And that's the through line, I think, with you is you're constantly being of service to people who are so far down on the fucking ladder that it's almost hopeless. Like we said earlier.
It was always
what are you doing now? Because you've always done.
The MO was always to show like that not everybody is 100% a bad guy. That was always one of my favorite things. You could argue that some of it was a little exploitative maybe, but then the heart was like to show that what people are actually sort of like, despite all the, I'm this gangster, or I'm this cannibal warlord or whatever, or I'm a drug addict, or, so that was always an MO. It's just like that MO was sort of, I'd wish I'd done it a different way. I'd wish I'd done so many things differently.
But you seem to be doing it different now. You're doing it differently now because you were doing.
People change, like, you're not the same person you were yesterday.
No, but like, what are you doing now? Talk about what you're doing now.
I'm not doing things professionally that are that
Not
much different.
professionally, but like of service. You're always doing, like I said.
Oh,
always
we
a guy who's
live in
of
Los
service.
Angeles. I've found people in Los Angeles, that, especially during the COVID stuff, there was a friend of mine started a nonprofit, Feed the Streets Los Angeles.
Yes.
I do a lot of work with in Skid Row. See, it satisfies my need for like darkness.
Right.
So we
That's
go
what
to.
I'm saying.
It really does, yeah.
But
And-
you're shining a light
But I'm
on
not
it.
filming people and sort of putting violins on it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, we're talking
working
about
at
the feed the streets.
well, we have Skid Row, which is sort of a outreach, food, hygiene, clothes, things like that. Then we have one in Hollywood and Gower. Then we have one in MacArthur Park. Then we're Tuesday and Thursday. They're all on Sunday and Friday. Then we have like we know a lot of people like skateboard companies, and we have like skate days and South Central play. They're the sort of best
What does
one.
that do?
We just have we have pros come down and giveaways and contests, and all the kids from the area come out. And you see,
Okay.
I grew up skateboarding, so it's good to.
Oh, you did?
Well, yeah, that's
I
all-
didn't know that.
Yeah, skateboarding and the old thing of skateboarding and punk rock and
Yeah.
School didn't really help me get anywhere. I have no qualifications whatsoever. It's terrible, but it is what it is. And so, like working in that has been really.
And how does that work? So then, where does the money go? How do people get involved in that? Can other people get involved in that?
Yeah, we're kind of Instagram based. It's at Feed the Streets _LA. We can put it at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, we can do that.
And we did a lot of fire relief effort. And there's a place, Cafe Tropical, in is that Silver Lake? Danny runs all that, and they've been helping out a lot there. I feel like I couldn't. LA's wild. Like you see how bad. I mean, it's just run in a very interesting way, I think. Like the whole of California.
Yeah.
And I just think I wouldn't want to live here unless you were sort of doing something to.
Which is a great attitude.
I mean, look at it. It's just terrible.
But what you said was true. I wouldn't want to live here unless I was. That's you.
You'd
though.
just be constantly feeling guilty, I think.
But that's what I'm saying about you. Is you're.
I'm addicted to. No.
You're not.
I think I used to be addicted to guilt.
I think you're.
I
Into
think
helping.
I was addicted to guilt.
You're into helping. When I first met you, like I always said, you were the guy making the coffee at the meeting. And I remember I had a gazillion years, a long time.
That stuff really worked for me. Like
I go, who's this new guy making fucking coffee all the time? I felt guilty. I go, fuck, I don't do anything to contribute.
It was it's just, I got to be busy. If I'm not busy,
It's your makeup.
go crazy. The
What,
drug
what are you doing for yourself though? Because I know that you got me down to the meditation.
Oh yeah,
center.
well the 12 step stuff led me to I'm a member of a Buddhist Sangha in Santa Monica. A mutual friend of ours, Joey Ruggiero, brought me to this place. We would go there on Wednesdays. I would learn mind training techniques, and we went there one night. We had dinner again, and then he passed away the next day on top of a hill with the family and the 2 kids, and it was just absolutely shocking. But I also felt that he sort of brought me to this place and sort of dropped me off almost. So I just kept going, and I took refuge.
What does that mean? You took refuge?
You take refuge in the 3. You commit to following Buddhist principles in your life and stuff like that, and it's because meditation was the service, and the meditation was really important for me. I like being calm and happy.
Which is so funny. Because
I always my happiness before came from just being a fucking just Gigi Allen happiness almost.
Well, it's so good.
But it was not. It's
so different than your life.
It's happiness that harms others. I did way too much of that. It was just embarrassing, really. And
what's your meditation practice like? What do you do?
Oh, you learn all sorts of ones.
What do you do?
I do different
what
ones.
do you do regularly? What's your go-to?
There's the where you start off with shamatha, calm abiding meditation, and you move into a thing called loving kindness, and then there's a thing called tonglen, which is you imagine all your mother figure or a person you really great, who did a lot of things for you. There's a lot of emphasis on like gratitude and realizing how we're also sort of very connected and working on the self. And realizing that so many people have done stuff for you, not only in this sort of form that you're in, but all the other sort of forms, whatever form that's sort of attached onto this, the consciousness that's been going since beginningless time. I never thought I'd be saying stuff like this in my life, but now I fully believe them. And
so it's like a reincarnation, right?
That. I mean, the thing where you're going to be in the next life, I'm going to be a bat. I don't think that's because I was naughty at Halloween. All of a sudden,
no. But I'm just saying. But isn't that what you're talking about?
It's just a constant flow of consciousness, and because the things attach themselves to,
like bats.
Could
your neck
could be a bat.
A bat to your neck.
You could
a
maybe
bat,
be,
yes.
you could, I'm not ruling out bat life, but
right?
it's that. Yeah, I don't think you can pick and choose, and very few people. But the tongue then is a really beautiful thing. You imagine someone you're very grateful for, usually like a mother kind of figure, then you imagine them suffering, and then you do this thing where you imagine you're taking away the suffering from them. And there's a really good trick I learned from it. If someone's like, and the difficult people is a great one. Because do you know any difficult people?
Yeah.
Difficult people are greatest spiritual friends, I've been taught. Because it's very easy to be sort of spiritual if everything's going great. You're on holiday, meditating by the beach. But if there's a difficult person, sometimes they come along. They are our greatest spiritual trainers because that's when the rubber hits the road. That's the gym. That's how do I practice these techniques.
How do you deal with it?
Well, one way, there's a little trick that my teacher Roz taught me. If someone's being like a bully, or if someone's being greedy, or if someone's one of the character, the behavior driven by like the 3 poisons. You just imagine that character defect. Mm-hmm. Someone's being angry at you. You just sort of imagine, give me all the anger in the world, and I'll take it on. I'll just take on all the anger. Give it to me. Someone makes it funny. Mm-hmm. Someone's yelling at you. Just imagine, okay, I'm going to take you, all the anger in the world. I'm going to breathe it in. I will gladly accept all the anger in the world in this moment. So it sort of diffuses anything you've got, but also it sort of makes you sort of, in Buddhism, you're sort of really encouraged to be cheerful about stuff, which is I was not a naturally cheerful person. But this helps me to be it's just a big show that begins and ends all the time and constantly changes, and sit back and watch the show and try to be useful in it, I think.
Well, and I think too, when
that helps with like frustration and being annoyed by people. And yeah.
And don't you think too? I mean, I think that when you come across a difficult person, whatever they're going through, 99.9%,
they usually come across you,
or they come across you. Whatever, it has nothing to do with me.
There's always something to do with you, usually.
No, not really. If you're coming at me with I just meet you and you're in a shitty mood because of whatever. Yeah, that has nothing to do with me. But you'll take it out on me, whatever. But it's my choice whether I want to react or not.
Oh yeah.
And how I want to see you. And I think
it's your choice how you want to react.
It sounds kind of like you're taking up, but you're also looking at him with compassion, right? Yeah, that's the key. It's a sick person in a way. If you look at them as if,
and it's a lot of
you're taking a contrary action, right?
Contrary action. You're trying to constantly not be deluded. Yeah, I was for a long time, especially those making the films we talked about before. There's a lot of delusion in my life. A lot of sort of, and when you take stock of that after lifestyle changed, it's sort of.
What was the delusion? What was it? Like, what were you delusional about?
Completely like who I was.
Who did you think you were?
I wasn't sure. I was a bunch of different versions of me.
Right.
And really the only thing I could be sure of was I didn't really like any of them. And
what about now? Who are you now?
Well, I'm fine with it. I'm who I am now is sort of immaterial because it's constantly changing also. And I don't care as much who I am now. You're just sort of trying to act as virtuous ways as possible, which
Which is like
Is it-
compassion, which is what you're saying.
sure, yeah,
It's compassion.
sure, yeah. As I'm saying all these things, I'm imagining the people that I wronged in the past. They're all coming to my mind right now, and yeah,
But you've made it. I know you've made
I made
amends to
some
those
amends
people,
to people. Yeah,
right?
yeah. What was I gonna say? I can't remember.
Well,
My memory's got better, actually.
I think we're out of time anyway, right,
Oh.
Dill?
Yeah.
What are we at?
You don't want to go into my OnlyFans? Because that could take a while.
We're gonna.
It's
put that at the bottom
20%.
of the
It's
screen.
20% off if you subscribe today.
It'll be at the bottom of the screen.
It's 50 cents today.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get 20% off.
Thank you so much for coming, Andy Capper, my good friend.
Cheers.
Cheers, ears.
Aloha.